So there's a DVD I need to talk to you guys about, but there's light at the end of the tunnel with this video because while I am going to destroy this, there is something that I need to talk to you guys about. And some of you may not have seen what happened on my channel a year ago when I discovered a movie that I fell in love with, so you're gonna dig this. So let's get into it, but let's do some context and talk about where this led up to. So last year, I was doing some videos going over some vintage DVD releases, over some classic movies, when this came into my life. This is the 1998 Night of the Living Dead 30th Anniversary Edition DVD. Now, what's so unique about this DVD? Well, if you own this release, then you'll know. But if you own any other release, then you'll have absolutely no idea. Because this release in my hand features a cut of the movie that was never seen before or since. That's right, this version never got released again. Now, what happened on this version? John Russo added footage into the film featuring Bill Heinzman, the most famous zombie of all time. Let's just say it wasn't great. On top of that, he changed the score. Now, in that video, I critiqued the movie as it was. I didn't like it. I thought there were things that are interesting, like the soundtrack's not bad, but it doesn't work for Night of the Living Dead. It sounds like late 90s Cradle of Filth intro concert music. It's just really creepy, dark synth stuff. Well, Night of the Living Dead's score worked perfectly for the film the way it was done. The problem is, we all know what happened with that copyright issue with Night of the Living Dead, so none of those guys made any money off the film, which is just insane to think about. One of the biggest horror movies of all time, and one of my favorite horror movies of all time, Night of the Living Dead, didn't make the guys who made it any money. So that is why John Russo did what he did, for him to finally be able to make a little bit of scratch off of one of the greatest horror movies of all time. I get it now. I do get it. And I will say, if you don't have this release, right now it's not expensive online. I say go ahead and get it. There's a thinner version, and then there's this chunky box version. They're pretty much the same thing as far as I know. I think this version just has the CD soundtrack on a CD. But talk about a weird piece of history. I thought that was one of the most hated DVDs of all time, but here's a personal one for me. So I love Night of the Living Dead, and I love watching different releases of Night of the Living Dead. I kind of collect them. Well, it dawned on me that I never watched or experienced Night of the Living Dead in a certain way. What way is that? Well, I just picked this up, and I watched it, and I was gutted at how much I hated it. Now, at first glance, you're probably saying, what's the big deal? It just looks like a DVD of Night of the Living Dead. This is the colorized remastered DVD of Night of the Living Dead. Now, I'm going to talk to you about this DVD for just a second, but there's light at the end of the tunnel because thank God they colorized Night of the Living Dead, otherwise something else might not have happened, and this is the most important part of the story. So, this is not the first release of Night of the Living Dead in color. Now, this goes back to the mid-80s when Night of the Living Dead got remastered and recolored by this company that was going to put out a release of the film. Again, neither George, John, Rush Striner, anybody involved with the original film could make a dime off of it because of not filing the copyright for the film. It was a big deal in the horror world that Night of the Living Dead was getting colorized, but none of the people involved could make a dime off of it. We would see Night of the Living Dead in color kind of be released throughout the years, but this is one of the last times it came out, this 2004 DVD. Now, this was put out by Legend Films. I got it off of Amazon for $10, so it's still readily available. It's still in print. What does Night of the Living Dead in color look like? Well, I can tell you this. It doesn't look horribly bad. It actually looks pretty decent in terms of the way they colored it. Mind you, it doesn't look great either. Don't get me wrong. But it's better than I thought it was going to be. But here's a big problem. This movie does not work in color. And I mean doesn't work in color whatsoever. It just doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't work at all. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. There is no drama. There is no tension to anything. The house isn't scary that they're in. The opening shot of the zombies with the legend of Bill Heinzman approaching, none of it works. It makes this film look horrible. Some of you out there could disagree with me, and some of you might say, well, I actually enjoy it. And to that I say, totally fair. But for me, thank God, Romero and Russo and all those guys at the 11th hour decided to stick it with black and white with the film, mostly for budgetary reasons, though they had the option to do color, but stayed in black and white, because the movie is supposed to be and needs to be in black and white. It just goes to show that just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should. I just absolutely hated Night of the Living Dead in color. Now, in terms of owning it, for $10, why not? It is a piece of horror history because they did recolor or colorize Night of the Living Dead. Right or wrong, it happened. And I can say now that I've actually sat down and watched it. And I watched the entire movie, start to finish, in color. Can't say I'm going to watch it too terribly often in color, but what can I say? This movie needed to be in black and white. You know, there can be some arguments for putting some stuff into color and putting stuff out of color. Like, there are some horror movies today that would probably look amazing in black and white, and there may be some black and white movies that definitely could benefit from color. Night of the Living Dead is not that movie. I'm super interested to know what you guys think about that. If you experienced Night of the Living Dead in color, if you got the VHS when it came out in the late 80s, or what, let me know. Now, why did I say that there's a light at the end of the tunnel with this? So, when this was getting colorized in the late 80s, it wasn't making anybody happy, but it did kickstart some things. Number one, the remake for Night of the Living Dead was going to come to fruition soon. John Russo and others were like, we have got to make money off of our title. I mean, we have not made any money, but everybody else is making money off of Night of the Living Dead. This would birth John Russo and Romero to start kickstarting the project, and in a few short years, we would see Night of the Living Dead 1990 come out. Now, remember, guys, that 4K remaster with more scenes intact is supposed to come out this year per Tom Savini. That's going to be amazing. So, Bill Heinzman, the world's most famous zombie, also wanted to try to make some money off of Night of the Living Dead. I mean, I would be so annoyed too if new releases were coming out and I wasn't seeing a penny. So he decided to make a movie. Now, obviously, he couldn't call anything of it Living Dead or Night of the Living Dead 2 because he couldn't do it. But what he did is he made a movie called Flesh Eater because of the colorized version of Night of the Living Dead. Now, this was all well documented. I learned about this from this release. Flesh Eater is the unofficial sequel to Night of the Living Dead, with Bill Heinzman, the world's most iconic zombie, starring in this. If you haven't seen this, my god, I loved it. I did a video about this last year, and the reason I saw this is because I've been doing Living Dead bargain bin movie reviews, and my audience told me, you haven't seen Flesh Eater, that's Bill Heinzman, you have to go see it. This movie is amazing. This is one of my favorite zombie films of all time. It's super late 80s, it's super Halloween time fun, and there are some amazing scenes, and Bill is at his best in Flesh Eater. As much as I love him in Night of the Living Dead, his best scenes as a zombie absolutely take place in this film. This Vinegar Syndrome 4K is a must-own, and I guarantee you, you can see how my demeanor's changed big time. I guarantee you, if you even remotely like zombie films, you'll love this one. So, it's weird how Night of the Living Dead, that colorized version, really sparked two things happening. You know, we got the remake coming out in 1990, which I absolutely adore. There are some times where I prefer the original Barbara, and other times, quite frankly, where I prefer the remake Barbara. I like the fact that Tom wanted to do something a little different. He didn't want to copy the movie start to finish. Romero wanted to copy the movie start to finish, but Tom says, I need to leave my mark on this. The fact that the colorized version sparked Bill Heinzman to get some money to make Flesh Eater, to finally get some notoriety, and try to get some return for his notoriety as the world's most famous zombie, it's amazing. Flesh Eater is one of the most fun films. I do a deep dive retrospective on this Blu-ray 4K in that video. I'll link it down below. But I'm interested to know how you guys feel about this. I mean, Night of the Living Dead in color. I always thought that I would like it. I honestly did. But I'm just shocked at how much I hated it. So much so that I needed to stop and do a video about this. I need to know what you guys think. Doesn't work to me. No drama. There's no tension in the image. Black and white made this film everything. Now, the music and the performances are great, but I can now say that the way I think that the music for Halloween is the absolute most important thing, well, black and white is hands down the most important part about Night of the Living Dead. So, I wanted to talk to you guys about that, and hopefully some of you have seen Night of the Living Dead in color. If not, go check it out just so you can experience it. I'd love to see what you guys think about it. But anyway, guys, there's always light at the end of the tunnel sometimes, and thank God it happened, because we got a remake and we got Flesh Eater, one of the greatest zombie films of all time, out of it. Thank you guys for watching this video. This is your old pal CHH, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.